I'm Emma Blake, 32 years old, an interior architect, and as of less than 24 hours ago, a newlywed. And if you're wondering how I felt on my wedding day, the answer is this. I smiled, I said I do, and then I handed my mother-in-law a folder of evidence proving my best friend had been secretly texting my husband. Yes, I'm the kind of woman who doesn't cause a scene when she finds out her best friend wants her fiancé. I observe. I wait. And then I choose my moment. Because when you're planning the perfect wedding, the last thing you want to overlook is betrayal. It all started with a text at 1:47 a.m. and ended with an envelope dropped on a brunch table the morning after. But if you want to understand why I still said I do, knowing everything, let me start from the beginning. The champagne flute slipped from my fingers the moment Vanessa raised her glass. Not because I was clumsy. I'd practiced walking in these heels for months. No, it was the way she looked at Logan when she said, "To the most extraordinary man I've ever known." The crystal shattered against the limestone floor of the hill country venue, sending golden bubbles across my grandmother's vintage lace. 150 guests turned to stare, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from my maid of honor as she continued her toast, her voice like honey dripping over broken glass. "Emma is the luckiest woman alive," Vanessa purred, her manicured fingers wrapped around the microphone, "because she gets to wake up every morning next to someone who truly understands what love means, someone who would move mountains for the people he cares about." Logan squeezed my hand under the table. His palm was warm, steady, everything mine wasn't. I forced a smile, the kind I'd perfected over 12 years of friendship with Vanessa. The kind that said everything was fine when your world was tilting off its axis. The sunset painted everything gold through the barn's massive windows. String lights twinkled overhead like stars we'd hung ourselves. This was supposed to be perfect. I'd planned every detail, from the sage and lavender centerpieces to the acoustic guitarist playing our song. But as Vanessa's eyes lingered on my husband of exactly 3 hours, I realized I'd missed the most important detail of all. "Logan and I have been through so much together," she continued, and something in her tone made my mother shift uncomfortably in her seat. "College, med school, those long nights when Emma was traveling for work." She paused, letting the words hang in the Texas heat. "He's always been there. Always." The wedding coordinator materialized with a broom, sweeping away the broken glass like she could sweep away the tension crackling through the air. But some things, once shattered, can't be cleaned up so easily. Vanessa finally looked at me then, her smile camera-ready. We'd been best friends since freshman year at UT Austin. She'd held my hair back after too many margaritas on 6th Street. I'd coached her through every breakup, every career crisis. She was supposed to be my person, my sister by choice. "To Emma and Logan," she finished, raising her glass higher, "may you always remember that the best things in life are worth fighting for." The crowd erupted in applause. Logan stood to hug her, and I watched her whisper something in his ear that made him stiffen, just for a second. Then he was back beside me, his pediatrician's smile firmly in place for our photographer. "You okay, babe?" he murmured, his lips barely moving. I nodded, reaching for his champagne since mine was now a puddle on the floor. The bubbles burned my throat, but not as much as the words I'd been swallowing for months. 3 months before the wedding, I'd found the first message. Logan had left his iPad on the kitchen counter, and it buzzed with a text notification from Vanessa at 1:47 a.m. "Can't sleep. Thinking about what you said earlier." I'd stared at it until the screen went dark, my coffee growing cold in my hands. When I'd asked Logan about it that morning, he'd laughed. Actually laughed. "She's planning your bachelorette party, Em. She had questions about the hotel in Malibu." He'd kissed my forehead, grabbed his hospital badge, and rushed out the door. "You're lucky to have a friend who cares so much." Lucky. That word followed me around like a shadow. The messages kept coming. Late-night texts about wedding centerpieces that somehow required immediate responses. Phone calls during his shifts that he'd take in the supply closet. Once I'd walked into our bedroom to find him quickly closing his laptop, his face flushed. "Patient files," he'd said. "HIPAA stuff. You know I can't let you see." I knew. I also knew that patient files didn't make someone look guilty. The turning point came 6 weeks before the wedding. I'd been in Dallas for a client presentation, a boutique hotel that wanted a complete redesign. The meeting had ended early, and I'd decided to surprise Logan with dinner from his favorite Thai place. His car wasn't in the hospital parking lot. When I called, he didn't answer, but Vanessa's Instagram story showed her at a wine bar in South Congress, and there, just barely visible in the corner, was Logan's watch, the one I'd given him for his birthday. I sat in that parking lot for an hour, watching the spring rain streak down my windshield. Every rational part of my brain offered explanations. They were friends. They were planning something for the wedding. I was being paranoid, jealous, insecure, all the things I'd sworn I'd never be. But then I found the message that changed everything. "You've always been the one who got away. Emma doesn't have to know." It was buried in his deleted folder, which he'd forgotten to empty. My hands shook as I screenshotted it, along with the dozen other messages that painted a picture I didn't want to see. Nothing explicitly physical, nothing that crossed that final line. Just enough. Enough to know that my best friend wanted my fiancé, and he wasn't exactly discouraging her. I could have confronted them. Should have, probably. But the wedding was 6 weeks away. The deposits were paid. The guests had booked flights. My dress hung in our closet like a ghost of the future I'd imagined. So I did what I'd always done. I collected evidence and waited. Vanessa had insisted on planning everything for the bachelorette weekend. "Trust me," she'd said, her influencer smile never wavering. "I know exactly what you need." What I needed, apparently, was to be humiliated in front of 12 other women in a Malibu beach house. It started small. She'd forgotten to pack the matching pajamas everyone else had, leaving me in my old Austin City Limits t-shirt while they posed for Instagram in silk sets. Then came the games, specifically the Never Have I Ever session after too much rosé. "Never have I ever," Vanessa said, her eyes locked on mine. "Hooked up with someone at their workplace." I drank. She smirked. Then she launched into the story of how I'd dated my boss at my first design firm, conveniently leaving out that it was after I'd quit, that we'd been together for 2 years, that it had ended amicably when he moved to Portland. "Our little Emma has quite the history," she laughed, while the other girls shifted uncomfortably. "Remember that bartender? Oh, and the guy from your gym who turned out to be married? He told me he was divorced," I said quietly, but she was already on to the next story, each one twisted just enough to make me sound desperate, careless, like someone who couldn't be trusted. The worst part came on the last night. She'd posted a photo of me passed out on the couch after a migraine, captioning it "bride down, #lightweight, #bachelorette fail." By the time I saw it the next morning, it had 3,000 likes and dozens of comments from people I'd have to face at the wedding. "Delete it," I said, finding her on the deck with her morning matcha. "Oh, Em, don't be so sensitive." She didn't even look up from her phone. "It's just a joke. Logan thought it was hilarious." "You sent it to Logan?" "Of course. He likes to know you're having fun." Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "We talk about you all the time. How to take care of you. How to make sure you're happy. That's what people who love you do, right?" I looked at this woman I'd called my sister, really looked at her. The perfect beach waves, the designer athleisure, the engagement ring she'd started wearing from some cryptocurrency entrepreneur she'd been dating for 3 months. When had she become a stranger? "Right," I said, and went inside to pack. On the flight home, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her ruin my wedding, but I wasn't going to let her have him either. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Logan was at the hotel with his groomsmen. Tradition, his mother had insisted. The house felt too quiet, too full of tomorrow's possibilities. I pulled out the iPad one more time. I'd told myself I wouldn't look again, but promises to yourself at 2 a.m. are flimsy things. The messages were all there, a digital trail of almost betrayal. "I know we can't, but God, sometimes I wish..." "Emma's lucky. She doesn't know how lucky. That night at the wine bar meant more than you know. After tomorrow, everything changes. But I'll always wonder what if." The last one was from Vanessa, sent just hours ago. Logan's response was just 3 dots, like he'd started typing and stopped. Started and stopped. Started and stopped. I printed everything. 53 pages of messages, screenshots, timestamps. I annotated them like the evidence they were, adding dates and context in my neat designer's handwriting. Then I slid them into a manila envelope and wrote a single name on the front. Helen, Logan's mother. Helen Blake was a force of nature. a former prosecutor who'd raised 3 boys alone after her husband died. She'd welcomed me into the family with warmth, but also warning. I love my sons more than life itself, but I'll always tell them the truth, even when it hurts. She'd pulled me aside at the rehearsal dinner, her hawk eyes missing nothing. Vanessa seems very invested in this wedding, she'd said carefully. She's been a huge help, I'd replied, the lie bitter on my tongue. Helen had squeezed my hand. Just remember, sweetheart, sometimes the people who smile the brightest cast the darkest shadows. Now, sitting in my childhood bedroom with evidence of my fiancé's emotional affair spread across my grandmother's quilt, I understood what she meant. But I also understood something else. I was still going to marry Logan tomorrow. Not because I was weak, not because I was afraid, but because I loved him enough to give him one last chance to choose, and because I wanted Vanessa to show her true colors in front of everyone who mattered. I sealed the envelope, set my alarm, and put on the eye mask my mother had embroidered with bride in silver thread. Tomorrow I would walk down that aisle in my grandmother's lace. I would say I do to the man I loved, and then I would burn it all down. "You look absolutely radiant," Vanessa gushed as she adjusted my veil. Her hands were steady, professional. She'd documented enough weddings for her Instagram to know exactly how to fluff tulle. "Logan's going to die when he sees you." I met her eyes in the mirror. "Let's hope not. That would really ruin the photos." She laughed, the sound like champagne bubbles popping. Empty, pretty, meaningless. The ceremony itself was a blur of promises I meant and smiles that hurt. Logan cried when he saw me, real tears that made me wonder if I was making a mistake. When he said his vows, the ones he'd written himself about building a life together, about trust and partnership, I almost forgot about the envelope tucked in my bouquet. Almost. Then came Vanessa's toast, every word carefully chosen to sound supportive while claiming her territory. The shattered champagne flute was an accident, my hands betraying what my face wouldn't show. But as I watched her touch Logan's shoulder, whisper in his ear, I knew I'd made the right choice. The photographer corralled us for family photos after dinner. That's when I made my move. "Helen," I said, catching Logan's mother by the dessert table, "I have something for you." I pressed the envelope into her hands, noting how her prosecutor's instincts made her glance at the weight of it, the thickness. "What's this, sweetheart?" "Insurance," I said simply. "For the family. Logan doesn't know I'm giving this to you, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. For now." She studied my face, and I saw the moment she understood. Her expression didn't change. Decades in courtrooms had given her the ultimate poker face, but her hand tightened on the envelope. "I see." She slipped it into her purse with practiced ease. "You know, Emma, I've always admired your attention to detail. It's what makes you such a talented designer." "I document everything," I agreed. "It's amazing what people reveal when they think no one's paying attention." She kissed my cheek, her lipstick leaving a mark I didn't wipe away. "Welcome to the family, my dear. Really welcome." The rest of the reception passed in a haze of first dances and cake cutting. Vanessa stayed by Logan's side whenever she could, fetching him drinks, requesting songs she knew were his favorites. She even caught the bouquet, holding it triumphantly while staring directly at him. I smiled through it all, the perfect bride having the perfect day. Only Helen caught my eye occasionally, her purse never leaving her sight, her expression thoughtful as she watched her son navigate between his wife and her best friend. "Ready to go?" Logan asked as midnight approached. "The honeymoon suite awaits." "Actually," I said, loud enough for others to hear, "I think I'll stay a bit longer. Enjoy the suite. I'll be up soon." Confusion flickered across his face. But Vanessa was already there, laughing about how Emma always has to close down the party and how Logan deserves his beauty sleep after such a long day. I watched them leave together, my husband and my best friend, and felt nothing but calm. Tomorrow's brunch would bring the storm. Tonight, I'd dance with my cousins and eat leftover cake and be exactly who I'd always been, someone who knew how to wait for the perfect moment. The country club's private dining room was sun-drenched and perfect, all white linens and crystal catching the morning light. I'd barely slept, but adrenaline and good concealer worked miracles. "There's the beautiful bride," Vanessa sang out as I entered, already holding court at the main table. She'd positioned herself next to Logan, naturally. Her hand rested on his arm as she regaled his cousins with some story about our college days. I took my seat on Logan's other side, noting how he flinched when I kissed his cheek. "Sleep well?" I asked sweetly. "Emma, we need to talk." "Good morning, everyone!" Helen's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. She stood at the head of the table, still in her St. John suit from the night before. I wondered if she'd slept at all. "Before we begin our lovely brunch, I have something to address." The room quieted. Vanessa's hand slipped from Logan's arm. "Vanessa, dear," Helen continued, her prosecutor's voice honeyed with false warmth, "I believe you left something behind last night." She produced the manila envelope. Vanessa's face went pale beneath her spray tan. "I don't—" "Oh, but you did." Helen opened the envelope with theatrical precision. "Such interesting reading material. Would you like me to share with the family? I'm sure everyone would love to hear about your late-night conversations with my son." "Mom," Logan started, his voice strangled. "What are you—" "You've always been the one who got away," Helen read, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Emma doesn't have to know." "My goodness, Vanessa. Such passion, such persistence." Vanessa shot to her feet. "Those are private—" "We're private," I corrected quietly. Past tense. Every head swiveled to me. I took a sip of my mimosa, perfectly calm. "You knew?" Logan's voice cracked like a teenager's. "I've known for months." I set down my glass carefully, the way you do when you're trying not to break things. Every message, every late-night call, every accidental meeting when I was out of town. "Em, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." I turned to face him fully. "You didn't sleep with her, I know that, but you didn't stop her either. You liked the attention, the validation, having two women want you." His family watched like it was a tennis match, their eyes bouncing between us. His youngest brother had his phone out, probably recording. I didn't care. "I married you yesterday knowing all of this," I continued. "Want to know why?" He nodded mutely. "Because I wanted to give you the chance to be the man who said those vows. And because I wanted her—" I gestured to Vanessa, who looked like she might vomit into the centerpiece. "To show everyone exactly who she is. A woman who smiles in my face while trying to steal my husband." "I wasn't trying to steal." "Sit down, Vanessa." Helen's command brooked no argument. "You've done quite enough." Vanessa sank into her chair, mascara beginning to run despite her setting spray. "So," I said, standing and smoothing my dress. "Logan, you have a choice. You can sit here with the woman who's spent months disrespecting our relationship, or you can come with me to couples counseling tomorrow morning at 9. Dr. Martinez, I've already made the appointment." The room held its breath. "I love you," I said simply. "But I won't share you. Not your heart, not your attention, not your 2 a.m. thoughts. You get to decide what kind of marriage we have, but decide quickly. The car to the airport leaves in an hour, and I'll be on that honeymoon with or without you." I walked out, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Helen's voice. "Well, Vanessa? Nothing else to say? How disappointing. You were so chatty at 1:47 in the morning." Logan found me in the parking lot, still in my sundress and heels, sitting on the hood of our rental car like a teenager. He looked wrecked, tie askew, hair a mess from running his hands through it. "Vermont," he said without preamble. "What?" "Cancel the Hawaii tickets. Let's go to Vermont instead. That cabin you showed me 6 months ago, the one with no cell service." He held up his phone, then threw it in the nearest trash can. "I choose you. I choose us. I choose therapy and hard conversations and whatever it takes." I studied his face, looking for the man I'd fallen in love with beneath the mess he'd become. "She's going to post about this. Make me the villain. Make you the victim of a crazy, jealous wife. Let her." He stepped closer, not touching me yet. "My mom's already got the family lawyers involved. Defamation's still illegal, even on Instagram." "You hurt me." The words came out smaller than I'd intended. "I know." His voice broke. "I hurt us. I got caught up in feeling wanted, in the attention, in— Christ, Em, I don't even know. It was like being back in high school, having the popular girl notice me." "We're not in high school anymore." "No," he agreed. "We're married." And I almost fucked it up before it even started. A text buzzed on my phone. From Helen. "Vanessa left crying. Good riddance. I've instructed security to revoke her country club access. Take care of my son. But more importantly, take care of yourself, H." "Your mom's kind of terrifying," I said. She likes you better than me right now. He finally reached for my hand, tentative. Can we try? Really try? Not just go through the motions, but actually do the work? I thought about the last 3 months. The doubt, the evidence gathering, the careful planning. I was exhausted, but I was also still in love with this flawed, foolish man who'd chosen ego over integrity until forced to face himself. Vermont, I agreed. But first, we're going to that therapy appointment, and you're going to tell Dr. Martinez everything, no minimizing, no excusing. Everything, he promised. We drove to the cabin in silence. 3 days of no phones, no social media, no outside world. Just us and the truth in the woods. It wasn't a honeymoon. It was triage. Logan talked until his voice went hoarse, about his fear of not being enough, about how Vanessa made him feel like the quarterback dating the head cheerleader, about how he'd convinced himself that as long as they didn't touch, he wasn't really betraying me. Emotional infidelity, I told him on the second night, wrapped in separate blankets on opposite ends of the couch. That's what Dr. Martinez will call it. I know what I did wrong, he said. I just don't know how to fix it. You can't fix it. You can only rebuild. And that starts with understanding why you needed that validation so badly that you'd risk us for it. We came back to Austin, different people. Not fixed, not healed, but honest in a way we'd never been before. The therapy sessions were brutal. Logan cried more in the first month than I'd seen in 5 years together. But slowly we started building something new on the ashes of what we'd burned down. Vanessa's Instagram imploded when someone, definitely not Helen's paralegal daughter-in-law, leaked screenshots of her messages to a gossip blog. She lost 30,000 followers in a week, and her cryptocurrency fiancé dumped her via DM. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just nothing. She was already becoming a stranger before the wedding. Now, she was just gone. 6 months later, we renewed our vows. Not in front of hundreds, not with photographers and champagne toasts. Just us, Helen, and a justice of the peace in the Texas Hill Country, surrounded by wildflowers and honest promises. I promised to protect our marriage from my own ego, Logan said, his voice steady now. To choose us every day, especially when it's hard. I promised to speak my truth instead of collecting evidence, I replied. To trust you with my hurt before it becomes resentment. Helen cried, actually cried, and hugged us both. Now this, she said, is a wedding. We kept the original wedding photos, even the ones with Vanessa. Not as nostalgia, but as reminder. In them, you can see it all if you look closely. Her hand always reaching for him, his guilty glances, my perfect smile hiding gritted teeth. They're historical documents now, evidence of who we used to be. The new photos are different, imperfect. Real. Logan and I at therapy. Cooking dinner in our kitchen, him chopping onions while I stir sauce. Reading on opposite ends of the couch, our feet touching in the middle. Building furniture for the guest room that used to be my escape plan. Small moments that don't look like much but mean everything. Do you ever miss her? Logan asked one night, finding me looking at an old photo from college. Vanessa and me at South Padre, sunburned and laughing. I miss who she used to be, I admitted. Or who I thought she was. But mostly I'm grateful. Grateful? He sat beside me, close but not crowding. She showed me who you really are. Not the perfect doctor who never makes mistakes, but the human who can fuck up spectacularly and then fight to make it right. And you still love me? Differently, I said, and watched him process that. Better. I loved the idea of you before. Now I love the reality. Messy parts and all. We don't talk about Vanessa anymore. Last I heard from mutual friends, she'd moved to LA, rebranded as a wellness coach. Sometimes I wonder if she's happy, if she's learned anything. Mostly I don't think about her at all. Our marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's Tuesday night takeout and arguing about the dishwasher. It's couples therapy every 2 weeks, even when things are good. It's Logan turning down drinks with female colleagues, not because I asked, but because he understands boundaries now. It's me learning to say, this hurts, instead of building a federal case. It's real, messy, worth fighting for. Tomorrow is our first real anniversary. We're going back to Vermont, to that same cabin where we started rebuilding. Helen's watching our plants. We're not ready for kids yet, may never be. Too much healing still to do. But tonight, Logan's making dinner while I write this, and I can hear him singing off-key to the radio. He brought me tea without being asked, kissed my forehead, went back to destroying our kitchen in the name of pad thai. This is love, not the desperate passion Vanessa wanted, not the perfect image we projected at our wedding. Just two flawed people choosing each other, again and again, especially when it's hard. The champagne flute I dropped at our wedding? We had it made into a wind chime. It hangs on our porch now, all those broken pieces catching light, making music from the shattered parts. That's us, I think. Broken and beautiful and chiming in the wind. And that's enough. More than enough. It's everything.